Hey, what's up everybody? Today, I'd like to introduce you to an awesome new tool. This is put together by Idea Research, and it's called Grounded Segment Anything. So you might have heard that Meta recently released a set of tools called Segment Anything, which let you segment anything. This Idea Research team came together and added some of their tools in order to give us this amazing set of cool things we can do with images. So, for instance, because of Segment Anything's power to segment anything, plus GroundingDINO's very impressive ability to generate excellent bounding boxes, we kind of get best of both worlds here, and we can do all kinds of awesome things like inpainting. And if you're anything like me, when you look at this picture of these bears, beautiful picture by the way, just chilling by the lakeside, you think the only way this could get better is if instead it was a little family of Ewoks. So if you're interested in this tool, I will walk through how we set it up, what I did to get it working, some modifications you might have to make depending on when you're watching this video. So let's just get right into it. So let's take a look at the repo. This is put together by the Idea Research team. It's pretty awesome. So basically what this is it's a marriage of a bunch of different tools. So we have GroundingDINO, Segment Anything, Stable Diffusion. They've even added Blip and Whisper. I'm not going to get into Blip and Whisper today, but I am going to touch on their Gradio demo, which does some awesome things. So let's just get right into it. As always, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to clone the repository. Okay, so let's jump into the terminal. As you can see, I am on Windows. I'm using WSL2 for this today instead of SSHing into my server. So if you're on Windows, this is going to work for you. And if you're on Linux, this should also work. So first things first, you've got to go ahead and clone the repo. Now, I've already done this, so you can see that I have my remotes here. You're going to want to make sure that you're up to date with a git pull origin main. Looks like we're already up to date, which is awesome. Once you're up to date, basically what we need to do is get this going. Now, there are a few steps, especially on WSL. You want to make sure that you have the correct CUDA versions installed. You can follow the NVIDIA toolkit documentation for this. So basically, in order to get CUDA, you're just going to have to follow the instructions on this page. It's the CUDA Quick Start Guide. Basically, I used the WSL install, which got up and running in no time at all. The instructions are very straightforward, and once they were done, everything was happy. Next, let's take a peek at the hardware that I'm going to be using today. First of all, you are going to require quite a bit of VRAM for this, so you are going to want to make sure that you have at least 12 to 15 gigs. In that range, you should be totally fine to run both the segmentation and the inpainting, which is going to be great. So, and run them both on CUDA. The demos are set up for CUDA, and so you'll want to make sure that you're able to run them. So we're back in the terminal, and in the terminal, all we need to do really is get our requirements. So we're going to get our requirements from the requirements.txt. We could do the old-fashioned pip install-r requirements.txt. Once you have all the requirements installed from the requirements.txt, you are going to want to go into the repository and make sure that you have all of these installed as well. It is important because you do need to make sure that you have all of the required dependencies so you can run this smoothly. You are also going to need to make sure that you're on fairly recent versions of Python, PyTorch, and TorchVision. This goes back to, CUDA 11.6 and before, so you should be totally fine even if you're on an older card. But it is important to keep in mind that you do need to have at least these versions. Another thing that I want to touch on is that you do have to get the weights yourself. So you will want to make sure that you install the weights with this wget command. We'll pop back to the terminal and see how that's done. Now that we're back in our terminal, you can just paste that wget command and let it run. So the Gradio app will automatically download the weights for the GroundingDINO model, but it won't do so for the Segment Anything model. So we do have to get them here, and then once this is done downloading, you're totally good to go. So now that we're done downloading our Segment Anything weights, there's nothing left to do but type Python gradioapp.py, and press enter. Now, the app should load fairly quickly, but it is going to take a little while when you first get started in order to download all of the model weights. So if you notice that your particular processing speed is slower, especially on the first couple tasks, that's because it has to load those model weights into memory. Let's head back to our browser and check out the app in action, right? So we have a couple different tasks we can do. Of course, it wouldn't be segment anything without the ability to segment anything. So we can go ahead and provide it a text prompt of what we want to segment. I'm going to choose water, and we can run that. And you can see that it's processing here. Processing does take a little while, so I'll be back as soon as it's done. Okay, so as you can see, we've drawn a bounding box around the water, which has also been painted this dark bluish color. Perfect, that's exactly what we wanted to see. Now let's see if it can detect these bears. We do want to be careful to make sure that we're putting bear in our prompt instead of bears, just to make sure that we give the model the best chance to perform well. And there you have it. Segment Anything is able to, along with GroundingDINO, both draw a bounding box for each of these bears, as well as segment them. Fantastic. And it really is this easy, right? Like, there is not a lot of setup, and it's working right out of the box. Now, we can also just do detections. So if we run our detection, you'll see it runs very quickly, and we just get bounding boxes for each of these bears. So moving away from the bear example, here we have an example that has many boats. First things first, let's see if we can detect any bears in this image. The model succeeds. It is not tricked. These are, in fact, boats, not bears. So let's type boat and see how it performs. So you'll notice that it does a fantastic job. It gets a ton of boats. I am very much impressed by how lightweight the model is and how well it runs. It's not like, earth-shattering or anything, but it is pretty cool. Let's see that same task with some segmentation. So as you can see, we are now able to draw boxes for and segment all of these boats. Very fantastically done. The model Segment Anything is absolute treat. If you haven't looked into it a ton, I definitely would recommend you do so. It's such a powerful and interesting tool. And of course, one of the most fun things we can do is inpainting. So let's try to see what happens if we inpaint boats and instead put cars. Inpainting does take the longest time and the most memory, which kind of makes sense. We also have to generate with Stable Diffusions, and it definitely modifies the boats. I would say these are less cars and more like melted boats, but it's definitely this is a hubcap-ish shape. This kind of looks like a car coming out of the water. So I mean, your results are going to vary based on what kinds of tasks you're doing. Obviously, trying to turn all of these boats into cars is kind of a silly thing to do, but it is what it is. So perhaps we can try a sillier prompt, and we can turn the sky into galaxy sky with stars and Milky Way, high quality 4K. I've got to, for my friend Ali, include the 4K. It is the most important part of the prompt, so we'll see how that looks. And it does a spectacular job. You can kind of see the boundaries where the segmentation mask was drawn here along the top. But in the segmented mask, we absolutely get a starry, high-quality, galaxy-ish photo. So this is a brief introduction to what you can do with the tool and how to get the tool. So now I'm going to talk about a little bit more what's happening kind of behind the scenes, right? So what is happening here is that the meta model, Segment Anything, is basically very good at segmenting things. I know it's crazy, right? But it needs focus. So we need to tell it where to segment, right? And that's where GroundingDINO comes in. GroundingDINO creates boxes around objects that we want, provided a text prompt, say. So what's happening here is, in this image, we say, hey, text prompt is going to be bench. GroundingDINO is going to draw a box around the bench. Segment Anything is then going to be asked to segment the bench. Now we have this piece of picture where we have a segmented area. We can use that to generate a mask, which is basically if the area is the segmented class, then it's going to be a particular value. And if it's not, then it will be a particular other value. Common values are black and white. Once it does that, you pass the mask to Inpainting Stable Diffusion. So what it's going to do then is generate in that mask, based on your text prompt, the thing that you ask it to. So it's this kind of chain of events that brings us from the initial dog sitting on this bench to a dog sitting on this kind of like sofa-esque object, right? And it's all thanks to these 3 different technologies working in concert, which you love to see. And you can run this locally on consumer-grade hardware, so that's never a minus. All right, well, that's about going to do it for this video, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click like and subscribe if you want to. And for now, that's going to be me saying goodbye, as well as this waving bear, and as well as this panda bear, which is technically a panda bear. It looks like it's going through some stuff, but it is a panda bear. All right, have a great day.